Hello and welcome to the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center here at the University of New Haven. I'm Mike Maguire and this is On the Spot. Tonight on the Spot, we have a program first. The winner of our previous show, Jordan Liu, returns to work with a mentor to refine his pitch before he moves on to the next round of competition. But before we do, let's meet Jordan's mentor, Steve Maguire. So I'm here with Steve Maguire, who's our mentor for the evening. He's going to be mentoring Jordan. Welcome to On the Spot.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
All right, so you are an experienced entrepreneur. You've done a lot of mentoring, but tell us a little bit about your professional background.
So I've been involved in commercializing technologies my whole career, so taking ideas and then turning them into commercial products. I focus primarily on medical products and medical devices. That's where my career's been. I'm an engineer by training with an MBA. And I love taking ideas and helping people turn them into reality.
Great. Well, thanks for being here, because I think Jordan can really benefit from what you have to tell him and to advise him about. So you saw Jordan's pitch.
I did.
Why don't you give a little bit of your first impression of the pitch?
Yeah. So I thought Jordan had a really good presence, very comfortable, presented well, and personalized it in a very genuine way, so very believable and convincing. I think that the opportunity is to turn more of the presentation into some details that explain how does this really work and how am I going to make money, how am I going to monetize it, how do I understand the market, and how do I compete against an awful lot of competitors.
And any idea that you have, either it's a breakthrough idea nobody's ever thought of, which is pretty rare, or you're in a very crowded space. And if it's an app or if it's something that looks like something else or a follow-on, like perhaps Jordan's idea is, you've got to be really sure you have that unique spot on the chessboard for your product.
At the end of the day, you have to solve somebody's problem and give them an opportunity for them to put their wallet out. And so what's the compelling story around that, and how will that happen? And I think also, how do you scale it? You know,
Yeah.
You can do it locally, but if the dream is bigger, how do you do that?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. The other thing too is I don't know if Jordan has a team or is working with others, whether it's on their immediate team or has advisors. But to me, it really it really matters to have different skill sets within the team. Also, the team is someone to bounce ideas off of or to put a mirror up to you. Because
Right.
if it's your idea and you're that passionate about it, sometimes you just don't see things.
Right, I would agree. All along the way, I've always learned that you have to surround yourself with different people, not the same kind as you. So I think that'll be an important thing to talk about with Jordan.
Cool. Well, before we get to Jordan, one last question. You've probably done 100 business plan contests and been judges on. What's the one common thing that you see young entrepreneurs or students miss or don't think about enough? Or what's a common denominator that if you were to say to this population, I wish you had done this, is there anything specific like that?
I think that differentiating is really important. There's a tendency sometimes to, follow the crowd and follow what's hot and what's popular.
Right.
And so being able to really differentiate in a meaningful way that a customer will appreciate and see value in, I think is really important. And I think along the way, that's one of the lessons that I've learned, yeah.
One of the things we see often in this particular generation of entrepreneurs and student entrepreneurs is everything's an app.
Yeah.
Everything's an app.
Yep.
All problems can be solved by apps, and it makes sense because it is relevant, to what's happening in the space. But when you talk to entrepreneurs about, well, how are you going to market that app? Well, we're going to use social media. Well, what do you mean social media specifically? How are you going to get it done?
Right.
Do you see that, and how do you guard against appomania or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah. Well, I think it's asking the questions we've talked about already, like how are you going to monetize this? Where does the revenue come from? How do you specifically get somebody to pull out their wallet, and how do you differentiate yourself in a way that will allow them to do that?
All right. Well, we're looking forward to seeing you help Jordan and
Yeah.
see how this whole mentoring process goes. Well, thanks again for coming.
Oh, love it. Thank you.
Well, Jordan, welcome back to On the Spot. Congratulations on winning your first round of competition.
Thank you.
It's great to see you again. So I know these things, but perhaps some of our viewers don't. So why don't you share with your name, your major, and your business idea briefly?
My name is Jordan Liu. I am a graduate student in the MyOp program, Master's in Industrial Organizational Psychology. And my idea basically helps small businesses connect to their customers' phones. We're trying to help businesses really who don't really have the means to purchase the ability to get to customers' phones directly, give them a great channel for them to be able to consistently talk to their customers whenever they're ready.
Yeah. Well, you know, small business, particularly small retail, is under a lot of pressure. You can imagine why. Amazon and other online entities. So it sounds like it has a real sweet spot for small businesses, but where did it come from? Where did the idea come from?
Yeah, so I'm actually a former student athlete, and when I would go on traveling trips to play other teams, we'd always have some time between games and between practices to be able to, explore the area. And every time I would go to a new city, pretty large cities as well, me and my teammates wanted to find something to do. So basically, we'd go on Google, we'd probably go on Facebook, we'd search everywhere online just to find something happening right now in the moment. And we'd always, come up short. That was the problem. So that's where it started. But, that's from the perspective of we needed something to do right now. But as I got into this business, I started to talk to a lot of small business owners and seeing what their issues were. And so it quickly transferred from it's a user problem to really it's a customer problem, which are our businesses, and how they're really having a hard time transitioning from this traditional marketing of newspapers, radio, billboards, flyers to now everything being online. Everything has to be there if that's where your customers are, you know what I mean? So, that's where it kind of inspired, and from there it just flourished. So, yeah.
So what stage of development is your business? My sense is that it's an actual business. You're actually out there with customers. Where are you? Are you in beta testing?
Yeah, so this is the tough part. The tough part is that we're solving a double-sided market. The reality is that we have both users and we have customers. So our users, which are locals and tourists, we have actually an MVP for them. They can actually go on the App Store and find TownView and download it and play around with it. Now, for our customers, which is what we're building right now, which I would like to say is about 50% ready, is that web-based platform that connects them to the TownView app. So that's where the part where it's like we're in that weird area of between revenue and non-revenue, but we actually are on the market at the same time. Okay. So yeah, that's kind of where we are. The minute that the software is done, the back-end web platform, we're definitely able to start producing revenue. Now, when will that be is a different question.
Well, every entrepreneur gets asked that question, and it's a difficult one to answer.
Exactly.
Now, when you say we, who's involved with you?
Yeah, so I started this project when I was an undergrad. So I have a marketing guy. I call him my director of marketing, and he's still at the same school that I graduated from. This season is last semester. And he handles the more, hands-on, directly with the customers and users, which is why I'm able to be up here and still kind of function with it. And then I also just signed on in the summer a software developer. Initially, we were doing it overseas just because we wanted to quickly get something to test if this was really an idea that mattered. But the thing about being overseas is it's very hard to scale. And it's consistent money that's needed to be poured into their pockets. I was able to find a software developer. She works for the school that I was at for my undergrad, and she's on as part-time, and she's helping us, transition this software from being partially complete to fully complete.
That's great. I mean, it sounds like you're a couple things are important when you're doing a startup. One is to have persistence. It sounds like this isn't something you started last week and you're thinking about next week. It's been around for a long time. It sounds like you've also pivoted a bit. You've taken the development to a certain level.
Yes.
By being on the spot and making your pitch and getting professional mentoring, what do you hope to gain out of your appearance and time here?
Yeah, so the biggest thing for me is the ability to talk about the idea in a way that is short and concise, but at the same time understanding of fully what we're going on. So, I mean, this is my second time on here now, so you can kind of get the gist that it's a lot happening.
Yeah,
so
right.
to break that down and almost funnel it to something that I can get it to 2 sentences and you understand everything has been a problem that's been, on my shoulders for a long time now. And it's something that you're gonna have to work through. I know that it's not gonna happen, in a day.
But it's like, I'm in advertising. It's like a great headline or
Yes.
a great sub headline.
Very true.
You look at it and you say, "That's just brilliant. I totally get it." But it probably took that copywriter a month, right?
Right.
And a lot of reworking to do that. So I think you're smart to be able to crystallize your idea into what we call our elevator speech,
Yes.
and do it in 30 seconds, so that an
Exactly.
investor goes, I want to know more.
Exactly.
So, all right. Well, I hope Steve, our mentor, is going to be able to help you do that, and
hope so too.
look
Awesome.
forward to see how you continue to grow and develop your idea.
Cool. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, Jordan.
Yes.
Okay, so Jordan, great to meet you.
Great to meet you as well.
I had the opportunity to see your first pitch,
Awesome.
and I thought it was really well done. You have a really good presence about you.
Okay.
You're convincing, and I think you have a good presence. So,
Okay.
so I think we don't want to lose that no matter what.
Okay.
For me, it's important to know what you want to get out of this.
Yes.
And I heard that what you're trying to do is fill some gaps.
Yes.
You're trying to be very concise in the presentation, but what are some of the gaps? Where do you think you're missing information, or what is it you want to accomplish?
So the biggest thing for me that I feel like I'm missing within, a presentation is that ability to tie all aspects of what we're doing here. As I mentioned, that this is a double-sided market. So being able to mention we have users, we also have customers, and we also are online with an app, but customers access us through the website. But at the same time, be able to understand why someone would want to pay for this and what really brings them value. So it seems like a lot, right, on initially, but to just kind of cut that down and thin the fat to just make it understandable and quickly understandable.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the key things that I was asking myself after listening is, how do you make money?
Yes.
All right, at the end of the day, what does the revenue model look like? Who's paying for what?
Yeah.
Why will they pay for it?
Exactly.
And who are you competing against? So tell me a little bit about your thoughts on the revenue model. Like, where does it come from?
Yes, so the revenue model, it's been changed a few times, and for right reasons. At first, you're obviously guessing just because it's an idea or whatever it is.
Right.
Then you actually go talk to some people about it. These might be friends or family, and then it might change a little bit. And then you go talk to the people that would actually be paying for it, and they'll tell you, what exactly it needs to be. But I always feel it's never going to be true until I actually see a check or some dollars coming out. You know what I mean? So until it gets to that point, it's obviously always going to be speculation in a way. So yeah, the biggest thing for us when it comes to the revenue model is definitely establishing a reason as to why you're paying for this monthly. So we're basing it as a subscription-based model.
Okay.
Which is kind of the hot thing now, especially with software.
Right.
You see it with like Adobe, they charge you monthly for things. Microsoft, they're not doing it as much, they're still doing it annually. But even then, you're paying for some sort of tools. That's kind of the end goal of what we try to, tell business owners when we talk to them is same way how you would go to the store and pick up a Microsoft disc and go purchase it at Best Buy is the same way why you would go to Townview and pick up the same disc, except we just offer it online. And the key is that we're offering you tools that essentially increase your revenue or help increase your revenue, specifically with your loyalty and engagement. So these things include like a rewards program. The more times you come to our business, sooner or later you'll get something off. Or online payment system. So
Right.
paying for before you even get there, or maybe even like holding a table or something before you get there. And then you have push notifications, which are things that get sent directly to customers' phones. So these are things that you don't have to open the app or open up your phone to see that there was notification from your favorite business. So there's different channels that we're offering, and they all don't pertain to each specific business. Obviously, whatever you can kind of customize it. Maybe I just need a rewards program and some push notifications. Maybe I just need the data aspect and an online payment system. So we're trying to offer businesses, channels that allow them to increase their revenue online. That's
Okay.
the key. The problem is that these channels are extremely expensive when you try to get them on your own. So one of the main ways to get them is developing your own app. Everything we're doing here, you can do by developing your own app as a small business. The problem is the cost and the know-how to do it when you're getting it. And so by the end of it, I've talked to a few business owners, and they're saying they're looking at at least an investment of at least $50,000 and up. For the most businesses, that's a very big investment,
Right.
Especially if you don't know if it's going to work out. Because there also is that aspect of, when I do make my app, how do people find it? You know what I mean? And
That's just the beginning.
That's just the beginning,
Right.
exactly. Not to mention, updates of software, updates of, new things that need to be within your app. It's a whole lot of things that you just don't want to pay attention to as a business owner who isn't technically focused. So the best way that I like to tell owners sometimes when I talk to them is, you're really looking at it as, okay, I want these certain tools, but I don't want to invest the huge amount of money needed for them. How do I get access? How do I give my customers these exact same tools without having to really break my bank?
Right.
So for us we're trying to undercut it a little bit and say, okay, the one thing that you won't get with us is the fact that it's not your own. It's singular, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, we're helping you out in two different ways. Users don't want to download 10 different store apps anyways. That's a problem within itself. So for you to create your own app, you're kind of putting yourself in a situation of, mine needs to be better than everybody else's so I can stay on someone's phone.
Right.
That's the first problem that we're solving for the users. And then for the businesses, the big thing that we're solving for them is, now you can relax on the know-how part. You know what I mean? You can pay for these tools, but not necessarily need to know how exactly they're working. From a technical standpoint, obviously you get to know the numbers and how money is coming in. So that's the value that we're trying to give to them.
So you've already have an app,
Yes.
and you're trying to connect it. Have you tested the market? Have you
Yeah.
talked to potential
Users or customers?
customers?
Customers.
Because they're the payers,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So have you talked to them? Have you interviewed them? Have you figured out, are you in a good spot? And
Yeah.
and you're also offering a lot of customized solutions.
Exactly.
And who's doing that? And how are you going to be able to manage that from a
Yes.
cost point of view
Exactly.
when you're holding the hands of these small entrepreneurs?
Yes. So from the first part where you're asking about who have I talked to,
Right.
so the biggest thing was, I actually did start talking about this app to some people before it was even created. So quickly I realized I need something in my hands, and prototypes weren't good enough. They didn't really give that realistic vibe to them. So what I then did was I pitched the idea at my school, got some money, and then I went overseas. I just, took a shot in the dark and said, all right, I've heard some good and bad things about this, but I'm gonna have some faith and see that, someone will come through. And at first I did get burnt, but I came back again and I found somebody else who knew what they were doing. They built the app in about 2 months. Got it all squared away in about 3 months total, make sure everything was well after testing and whatnot. And then we did our first beta test November of last year. And what we did with that test was we released it for 2 months, November, December. And we got around 700 users from our school campus. So it was very niche.
Okay.
It was
Yeah.
very niche.
Right, it was small.
Yeah,
but-
it was small, but I wanted to see, do people interact with it? That's all I cared about. People
Right,
thought I
right.
was trying to make $1 million off of it. I was like, no, I was actually using them as my guinea pigs. I
Sure.
wanted to see, will you use it? And they did, which is the good part. The problem is that they actually kind of ruined the app because it was a decent amount of people on there. So I wasn't very confident in the abilities of the overseas guys to make sure that this could continue going forward. But luckily enough, I was able to cut the app off when it comes to the beta test and say, let's go back and let's revamp things based off of our data and based off of what we've been told through our feedback. What exactly went well? What could we improve? It took a very long time to get this right, but I did. And the best thing was, during this time, I was able to take this data that I had from the users and go to the customers now. Once again, still a little bit confused because they don't know where exactly they can have their input in, because they don't have a system themselves to go in there and log into. but they understood that there were people on there and people that were locally on there. That was the key. It wasn't just anybody from across, the country. It
Right.
was, these are people in a hyper local area that are on here using it. They really loved that part. Really, really loved that part. So for me, talking to them was a lot easier at that point, because now they understood, oh, I see how I can fit in. I don't know how exactly I could actually work it yet, but I could see how I can fit in. And they were a lot more free. So when I was able to do this, that's when the revenue started talking. And I started asking them, what are you looking for? And what exactly would make you want to promote yourself on this app?
Good.
You know what I mean? And the biggest thing was loyalty. That's the one thing that they want.
Okay.
It's kind of the 80-20 rule. You make 80% of your revenue from 20% of your customers. So to increase a 1 or 2 loyal customers is actually a huge thing for a small business, because that's consistent money coming in. So they wanted that, number one.
And I think so what I hear you saying is that that's the value proposition.
Yes.
For the customer, the value proposition is loyalty.
Yes.
And I think in your pitch, you want to start talking about why somebody would buy this.
Okay.
Where's the value that's
Gotcha.
being created
Okay.
for them in their eyes, and therefore they pull the wallet out. So where's the money coming from? Why? What segment of the market and why? And what have you done to validate that?
Okay.
Because credibility is going to have to come out eventually with, yeah, this is what we've done. I've done the research, and this is why we're starting this way.
Okay.
And it doesn't mean that you don't want to talk about follow-ons beyond.
Okay,
So
okay.
that's going to be important
Makes
as well.
sense. Makes sense. So focusing on one specific type of business makes sense early on, especially when you're talking about it, and then really figure out why they would need it the most. And then maybe you could talk about how later on it could kind of trickle on to other
And how you
things.
can scale it,
Okay.
either horizontally with other
Yes.
kinds of businesses.
Okay.
But then the other thing that I was thinking about is, how do you scale this geographically?
Gotcha.
So I'm trying to think about, and help me with this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going into these small businesses and
Yes.
trying to explain this. All right. So you may be doing that today. Like, you can have a sales force. How are you
Yeah.
going to? Is your vision that, okay, am I doing one town at a time?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to do a state, and then eventually I'm going to do the country.
Exactly.
Because this kind of model, ultimately, you're going to want to scale.
You need to scale, very much need to scale. And that's kind of been a tough part as well, and I'm glad you bring that up so we can talk about that, is, there are many different ways to go about it. Should we just stick to one area, focus, hone on it, understand this is the ins and outs, we're making money off of it, all right, now time to go somewhere else? Or we look at it as, this is a software almost. Imagine literally a CD and just being able to hand it to other business owners in a way. And that's kind of the way you scale it in a sense, where it's like, you're looking at it more so as, this is a place where you can go to access tools. It's not necessarily a place where it's like a stagnant, this is where we are, period. If I have these tools, I can use these tools anywhere. As long as there's customers that are on the app. Which then kind of begs the question of, well, how do you get people on the app? And the biggest thing is the same way how if you got your own app, how would you get people to download it yourself? You promote it inside your own business. The same way how if you walk up to a business right now, you probably see Uber Eats on the side, take food and bring it to other people.